Leigh Walker, you are one of the greatest humans that I know. Sometimes people struggle with mental health because of a particular traumatic event.
I was at a turning point in my life. Like there was things happening in my life that I wasn't overly loving and happy with. So it could have been a trigger, it could have been played a role in it. But it kind of felt like it did come out of nowhere. It's kind of like I woke up one day and the world went grey.
When was the point of going, all right, something needs to change here?
Yeah, when I had a night on the drink and it scared me. And that was a moment where I was like, okay, what do I need to do? And that to me was getting back into sports, and that was my next step, was to start looking after myself.
Have you ever had one of those mornings where you wake up and just feel off, but you're not sure why? Today I'm sitting down with my good friend Leigh Walker, someone I'm lucky enough to work with and learn from every day. Leigh's been on a pretty incredible journey through mental health, motherhood, low-tox living, and some seriously deep personal growth. We talk about how she turned things around when life got heavy, what she's learned along the way, and how she keeps showing up with intention. It's honest and it's real, and I think you'll take a lot from it. All right, let's get into it. Leigh Walker, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you are one of the greatest humans that I know, and the very first person we've ever recorded, other than Codes, that works in the firm. But it's not because of that you're here. How would you describe yourself to someone who hasn't met you before?
Oh, that's a tough question. Driven or caring, compassionate.
If they said, what do you do?
What do I do?
Yeah.
I'm multi-passionate.
What are the roles that you play in your life?
In my life, my roles would be a mum, a stepmum, nana.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
A PA to an incredible human. a wife, a daughter, many roles. I wear many hats.
Yeah. Businesswoman.
Businesswoman, yes.
Run your own business as well.
Yep.
And for people who obviously don't know, you're on a path, and you've been on a path for a long time with health and sort of low tox focus.
Yes.
But that wasn't always the case.
No. My journey really started in my mid-20s. So it's been different, like probably 3 different factors and different moments that have, mental health was my first time in my mid-20s.
Yeah, right.
And then low-tox living would have started when I was a mum, early years, and then mindset development work just a few years ago.
Okay, well, that's a great segue then. So the first, in your 20s, you said mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So what was it? From what we've discussed, it wasn't sometimes people struggle with mental health because of a particular traumatic event, but it wasn't that case for you?
It's really hard to pinpoint. I was at a turning point in my life. Like there was things happening in my life that I wasn't overly loving and happy with. So it could have been a trigger, it could have been played a role in it. But it kind of felt like it did come out of nowhere. It was kind of like I woke up one day and the world went grey. It was like this weight on my shoulders, lump in the throat. Like somebody said to me, "What's wrong?" And I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
But from your recollection, it was almost like it was overnight.
Yeah, it's what it felt like.
Right.
It felt like I wasn't overly happy, but I wasn't. I wouldn't have said I was depressed, until this moment. And
what did life look like then, in terms of family, in terms of where you were living?
I was back home with my parents. Yeah. I had lived out of home for years, and I had gone back home. I think everything happens for a reason, because I needed that support right at that time, which was great. I'd been exposed to depression. My mum had suffered for as long as I can remember, since she was 17.
Wow.
And been medicated, had a traumatic life experience, almost died in a car accident at 17. And so she had been, I'd witnessed episodes, I'd witnessed her experience over time. I understood depression. I just didn't know why it was happening to me. And I had incredible support with my mum and my dad, because I understood it so well. But I felt so lonely at the same time. I had friends say to me, like, just snap out of it. And I would have given anything to have been able to snap out of it. Yeah.
And how long do you think it took when you, I guess, inverted commas, woke up and had that weight on your shoulders in your 20s before you said, enough's enough?
Well, I agreed to medication right at the start, which did help. I probably would have carried on in a destructive way for about 3 years.
And what did that look like?
Alcohol, relying on alcohol, I didn't have a lot of self-worth.
Mm.
I didn't have any confidence in myself, any belief in myself. And that was a way to bring me out of my shell. It was like, that gave me the Dutch courage, so to speak, to, feel like I was a better person and that I could be around people socially and not be awkward. And it was just so destructive because then the next day I would analyse everything or not remember anything,
Sure.
And it made it worse.
Mm-hmm. Mm. But for 3 years you were there. And then what was the triggering point where you're going, when was the point of going, all right, something needs to change here? Because I feel like a lot of people get to a point where they're like, and not necessarily like a, dramatic sort of low point of your life, but it's sort of like a T intersection where you're like, okay, I've got to make a decision here.
Yeah, when I had a night on the drink and woke up in my own vomit and realised, like, that scared me a lot. Some people will be like, oh yeah, whatever, but it scared me.
Yeah, okay.
And it made me feel disgusted and ashamed and thought, where have I got myself to? And that was a moment where I was like, okay, what do I need to do? Like, what's the next version of me look like? And how do I get there? And that to me was getting back into sports, and I was always an active person and realised how much that actually supported my mental health that I wasn't actually doing. And so that was my next step, was to start looking after myself, and health was number one, and it was a key for my mental health.
Yeah, okay. And that's when you went back to squash, you said?
I did. Well, I started. I'd never been to squash. I'd played it once at high school. But
why did you choose that?
Because I knew I liked it at high school, and I was trying to think of, and I'm a competitive person, so I wanted something that, was going to challenge me, and something that was social as well, to get me out of my comfort zone, to get me meeting new people and be around healthy, like-minded people.
And that's where you met Wayne?
It is.
Which is almost also serendipitous, right? That you had to wake up in that moment to then lead you to the squash courts, to then meet your husband. Was it as simple, not so simple, but was it as linear as that, in the sense of once you got your sport activity and the movement, that the rest followed?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's constant work. I took myself off medication not until I felt pregnant, but that was always the goal for me. I definitely wanted to be doing things the more natural way. So that, yes, a little bit linear. It kind of did flow that way. It wasn't, I wouldn't say it was incredibly challenging once I made the decision that this is the path I need to take. Then it was like, I followed that. It was still a work in progress with alcohol, with my own self-belief. And one thing that actually really supported that was I went overseas by myself around that time. Just as I met Wayne, I had this trip planned, and I'd actually had a lady say to me, a lady was coming with me. And again, I'd looked outside of myself for people to make decisions for me to have confidence. Always had to have someone with me. I never trusted myself. And she backed out. And I was in this predicament. Okay, well, am I going or am I not going? And one person in particular said to me, they laughed at me and said, there's no way you can do that. So I was like, when someone tells you can't do something, then you must.
Yeah.
And I did it. And that was, massive for my confidence in myself.
To be able to go overseas and travel by yourself.
Well, I did tours and things, but travelled on my own, didn't know anyone, meeting people. It was way out of my comfort zone. And it was just a way to prove to myself that I've got this, I've got my back, and just create that sense of confidence within myself and trust that I can do challenging things.
Yeah. And even like, I feel like that approach to embracing things outside your comfort zone not necessarily comes naturally, but you and I don't know, what I see, at least from my side of the fence, is that you will always lean into that. You can acknowledge that, you can identify that something is outside your comfort zone. But almost like I see this, which I can resonate with, it's like, well, that looks terrifying, but because it is, I'm going for it.
I'm going to do it. Yeah, definitely. It's almost like an adrenaline. I definitely think that what scares you and what terrifies you is definitely something to lean into with everything. I think even fear of something, they say if you've got a fear of it, then that's exactly what you have to do. So like fear of heights, for example.
Yeah.
I had an all-consuming fear of heights. And I ended up climbing the Q1 and leaning off the top of the building to cure that. And it worked.
Yeah, I think Peterson says the what you're trying to find is always at the last place you want to look. And I think that's absolutely the case. And I don't know whether I'd be going up Q1, but all the power. The next stage, I guess, then becomes motherhood. You have your first child with Wayne.
Yes.
Talk me through that process and that experience.
Motherhood brought with it, it's just a whole new, you've got somebody else to look after now. And I wanted to do better for health-wise for both the kids. Like when Zali came along, probably more so when Zali came along. Cooper, I was just trying to survive because I didn't sleep. Neither of the kids slept through till they were about 5. So I was very mindful then of not slipping into postnatal depression. After having the experience of depression, my family actually did think that I had a bit of an intervention and said,
all right,
we think you need help. We think that maybe this is what is happening. And to me, I knew the difference. It was sleep deprivation for me. I wasn't coping at all, and I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know how to receive help. I felt guilty. All of the shame that came in that I should be able to do this. Like this is the way it is. Like I'm the mum and I should be able to cope, and I wasn't. So asking for help was a big learning curve for me in that time.
Yeah, I think that also, I can imagine though there's some identity with the struggle, and to say, well, and it must sit with every new mother that this is what we have to endure. Like you almost sacrifice yourself because that's almost like a societal thing where you're like, well, I'm now a mother to this infant. I've got to, by virtue of that, I need to sacrifice. It's okay that I am sacrificed. Almost. Is that how you felt?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, your needs are kind of like
irrelevant.
Yeah, out the window.
And so, at what point did you get to? Because I sort of feel like in this chapter of your life, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost like a 2-part thing where it was health, obviously, and that was the journey that that path you started, but also this idea of prioritizing your needs or validating, or at least filling your cup up, for example, so that you can be the best that you can be for the kids. How long did it take?
A long time. Yeah, I didn't start doing that probably till Zali was about 4 or 5. Yeah, it was just to wing it, just do the best you can.
And what did that look like? And it's probably not. It's probably really consistent with a lot of mothering stories. But
yeah, absolutely.
What did it look like for those 4 years where you weren't putting yourself, like you weren't caring about you?
Burnout, and you can see that on the outset, but looking back, you kind of know what you needed. But yeah, it wasn't self-care to me. Just didn't exist at the time, and I didn't really think about it. It wasn't. It was just, this is the way it is. It's just, and I would have, Wayne was incredibly supportive, and he would recognize when I needed a break and do things like that, and support me in that sense. But yeah, it just felt like that's just the way it is. Yeah. I didn't see anything different.
Was it when Cooper came along that it changed, or you'd already made that decision?
Yeah, probably more Zali after that. Yeah.
And then what did it look like? Or talk to me then through how does the path to low-tox and health look like?
Yeah, so when Zali would have been about 4, I would say, and I had a lady in my mum's group say to me, I think you'd like this course. Because we'd talked about, I was trying to do better for the kids. I was trying to figure out how I could feed them better, and just be healthier. And
were you being that healthy as well at the time?
No. I was always health conscious, but not to that degree. I wasn't aware of these things until I did this course, and that absolutely blew my mind. It was 30 days. Every day was a different topic on reducing our chemical load. And when she said to me, the average woman, not on a low-tox journey is exposed to over 200 plus chemicals before she leaves her home in the morning just blew me away. And I was like, what? This means I'm exposing my kids. And my thing was like, how do I do better for my kids? Like what environment and what have I, produced for my kids? So that really set my journey, and I'm still on that journey. I'm not perfect on that journey, but there's so much to learn, and it gave me a real thirst for more knowledge. I was thinking more people need to know about this.
Well, you're talking to someone who probably doesn't have that knowledge. What are we missing out? What are the things that we should be avoiding?
Where do I start? Overwhelm for me is my default emotion. So as soon as I got all this information, it was like, okay, how do I actually help educate without overwhelming somebody? Because there is so much. It was broken down into everything from what you use to cook with, Teflons, the chemicals that are in those sort of products, what we put in and on our skin, like on a daily basis, that has an accumulative effect in our body. So in endocrine interrupting chemicals, so shampoos, soaps, skin, all of the beauty products as well, the water that we're bathing in, to the sheets that we're sleeping in, to mattresses. The list went on.
Is there evidence, though, to say that the exposure to those, or the lack, let's say the alternative, we don't have any exposure, what does life look like on a molecular level or even a lifestyle level? How healthy can we be if we don't expose versus if we just keep going as status quo? Because there's one thing for you to tell me I'm exposing to 300 chemicals before I walk out the door. But if I'm no better off in the long run by not exposing myself, or I'm no worse off, then what's the impetus to change?
Well, I think there's a lot more research coming out now about studies linked to cancers and different things in the body, and that some of the products that we're using on a daily basis have carcinogenics in them, and that over time and it's not something you probably would notice now unless you are actually feeling unwell within yourself.
Yeah.
And that will go, okay, well, then I'm going to do an elimination process. I'm going to look at what I'm exposed to then. But for me, it's preventative. I wasn't feeling unhealthy, but when I learned about these things, I thought, well, I don't want to get to 10, 15, 20 years' time and then think, oh, maybe I should have reduced that, so that was my choice.
Yeah. And then over that time, are you just simply paring back the purchasing choices, or what, the change of sheets or the change of shampoo or the change of...
Yeah, it's just a gradual process. It's not... I started out with perfumes and things. I ditched all of my perfumes. That was the first thing. And candles, mindful of what candles I'm burning, if they've got lead wicks, what we're inhaling. Those were the first things I started with. Mm-hmm. And then not cooking on Teflon that might have had scratch surfaces and things, like switching to stainless steel.
Yeah.
It's just gradual process. And plastics as well, so that I do my bit for the planet too, so I'm not using all of the reusable plastics, the ones that break down, that sit in landfill forever. So just doing my bit for the planet was important to me as well.
How is that education going through within the household? Because I imagine you've got, as you said, you've got step kids, your own kids. Wayne, are they all on board?
Wayne definitely on board. He actually sends me articles that he finds and things like that, which is great. The kids were for a very long time until they hit their teenage years and they have more independence. They still know the foundations, and I'm comforted by that. But with the aluminium-free deodorants and things that I would have, I now walk through and smell what they're spraying, and it's a bit of a battle now. But I feel that they will come around eventually.
Yeah.
I've just have to trust that I've educated enough up until this point, and just keep modelling it as well myself.
Do you find that your body is so healthy and so in tune with I guess with all the good things that you put into it, that if you're more responsive, or you can feel like if you do have a couple of drinks at night or even a party, you're more like the next day hits you harder because you're otherwise so healthy?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And things like perfumes. If somebody's wearing perfume, I'll usually get a headache. I can taste it. I can feel it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because your body's
so more
just not
sensitive
used
to that. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Hey guys, just popping in with a gentle reminder. If you're enjoying this episode, we'd love it if you gave it a like, hit subscribe, and leave a comment with your thoughts. It's free and it really helps us grow and continue to share these stories that matter. Cheers. You've talked about exposure to unhealthy chemicals.
Mm.
What's your view? What's your take on the exposure to thoughts as another ingredient? So like, and not necessarily thoughts, but notifications or input of information, whether that be by screen and social media or the news or however, like, because the food and the water is a huge component of your life, but so is the information, so are the people around you, your friends as you've grown. Has that changed to the type of people that you hang around with, to your own you allow yourself to be exposed to different mediums of information. How does that play in your world?
Yeah, I think it's about being responsible for your thoughts and what you absorb from other people. I do surround myself with like-minded people that have a growth mindset. I think thoughts and our language is one of the most powerful tools that we have and can be very toxic to us. And it was for me for a very long time. I was in victim, lack, scarcity, in that lower vibration, watched the news, bought into fear, all of those sort of things. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I started on the personal development side of things and all of the mindset work that I realized how much I was in, absorbing information like that from other people and taking things on as my own beliefs and how detrimental that can be. So now I'm very cautious of what comes in and what I absorb and my projections onto other people as well.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a beautiful sort of 3-part journey for you, in the sense that it's managing the negative mindset or the mental health in your 20s, then going into physical health, movement, water, and food and chemicals generally, and then going into the mindset piece. Well, before we get into the mindset piece, plug your business. Talk to me about this water, because it's a huge component of it. Right?
Yeah, it's a big part of my life. I started with the company more so because I wanted something for me. I wanted a bit of purpose outside of being a mum, and I wanted to be able to contribute more to my family, and I wanted something that I could really stand behind. And I already knew about the importance of quality of water before this came along. When my mother-in-law got ill, we actually did a lot of research around water then, so I'd already understood all of that. So when this sort of came in my lap, my best mate was doing this business, and I was looking for something for myself. And when I saw the product, to me, it was a no-brainer. So it's an ionizer.
So it's called the company's called.
Enagic is the company.
Is what, sorry?
Enagic is Japanese company.
Yeah.
And Kangen water is like the machines is what they produce, is a water ionizer. So what it does, it's like an electrolysis process. So it splits your water molecules into much smaller versions. So it produces molecular hydrogen that we can actually absorb at a cellular level. So it's living water essentially. And it fights free radicals, has anti-inflammatory properties, antibacterial properties. It produces 5 different types of water. So you can use it not only for drinking, and it's used for killing bacteria. You got 2.5 hypochlorous acid, kills bacteria. Can be used for killing sore throats and gastro and so many different things. Over 63 uses, and extracting oil-based herbicides and pesticides from your fruit and vegetables with the 11.5 oven degreaser cleaner. You can ditch a lot of your beauty products as well. So for me, that supports my values of health at low-tox living and being able to ditch a lot of chemicals I already had, but even more so with having this in the home. Yeah, so I love it.
Well, you didn't know that we'll do this, but not that we have a huge following, but we'll put it in the show notes anyway, a link, and they can do their own research as well and see what you're spruiking and loving. All right, well then let's move on to that growth mindset piece, because that's what I mean, other than all the other things that are great about you, Leigh, that's something that I truly admire. And so when did that path start for you, and how did that look?
Yeah, so it was really when I started my online business, because 80% of what we do is the inner game, 20% strategy, and that was very much talked about. I'm very big on mindset, personal development, and so I dived into that. And having my best mate too, she's a coach, and she was well on her journey of mindset, and so that really helped to pretty much have her in my pocket, and would be able to pick up my language and do reframes with me. And it was just a constant work in progress, and had to really, it just shone a light on my limiting beliefs as well. And I started to be more conscious of my thoughts and my language and how I spoke. And I could then start to pick up the negative languages or the negative thoughts that were coming up, and really start to be conscious of reframing and
Internally.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and what I would speak out. I would
Sure.
actually hear myself say things and then go, oh, okay, and then be able to reframe. There was lots of different components of that. Gratitude was one of them, of being able to switch my state as well. If I was feeling negative and the thoughts were coming up, it's like, how can I shift out of this state? And gratitude was a way to do that. That was a big part, and it still is. It's a big part of my everyday is gratitude. And just looking at different healing modalities along the way, like timeline therapy and NLP. I studied that with Ali as well, because I found that to be a really powerful way to access our limiting beliefs at the root cause and things that we can't consciously remember, and be able to do rewiring in that way. I've done kinesiology. There's lots of healing modalities that I've really dived into, and it's been a big part of my growth journey. It's a constant work in progress.
Yeah, right. And I think it's almost discombobulating in the sense that when you get to that point of understanding that you are not your thoughts, and then because there is a second, or there is you who is assessing those thoughts, and when you understand that, then it, I think, opens up an enormous opportunity to know that if I am having a low moment and I'm thinking, or I'm thinking scarcity, or I'm thinking fixed mindset or closed mindset thoughts, that you're assessing that, but it's you that is assessing those thoughts. And so it's almost like you've got you've got the subjective and the objective within yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I think and certainly with all the information that I have acquired in this space, you still trip yourself up on it, and you still forget that you've got an option, and you are not the way you think. And I think that is, when you're in the depth of it, no matter how deep that well is relative to your own life experience, it's easy to forget that you are not the thought, even though it's within you. And to be able to separate that, to be able to go, if I can shoot, and that's agency, right? That gives you power to go, well, and it's confronting, because then you're like, well, if I'm not that and I get to choose that, I'm still choosing that, and that's not great. But to be able to say, no, I get to choose that negative thought that I just had about myself. That's a choice. And so,
and it's a choice to
flip,
keep thinking it, or
to flip it,
yeah. Reframe.
Yeah. So where does the path lead for you going forward? Where does that look like?
I can continue to do the work every day on myself, because I feel like there's never a destination. It's just, it's all about, what does the next version of myself look like today? And it's just showing up as the best me every day. And how can I keep improving? And that is just being extremely conscious of my language, what I'm putting out into the world, and living in ecology, like we spoke about once before. Is this good for me? Is this good for others, society, planet? And living by that every day.
You prioritize that way?
Yeah, I do. I live in alignment with my values every day, which is good for me. And then, of course, it's going to have that amazing ripple effect as well.
And you come back to reminding yourself of those values daily, or are you?
It's more so if I can feel it in myself. If I'm out of sorts, it's like, okay, I look back. The things that I look at daily is health, relationships, contribution, my growth, personal growth in business, mindset, and fulfillment. And so it's like when I'm feeling off, when I'm feeling out of sorts, I will look, okay, well, have I been looking after myself? Like what have I been doing for my health? That's usually a tick. I'm usually pretty onto health. Relationships, like is there anything that I'm not nurturing somewhere? Is it with myself? Is it is it Wayne? Is it, there's something in my relationships? And then contribution, that's big on my heart too, contribution. And it's like not necessarily financially, it can be, but how have I given back today? Have I, supported somebody? Have I made somebody feel good today? Where am I at with contribution? And then my business, my growth, what sort of skill sets, what have I done to help myself mindset wise? It's usually, if I'm feeling off and out of sorts, it's usually there's something that I'm lacking in that area. So always look at that first. And it's cycles as well. Masculine, feminine energies working with cycles. There's so many different layers to that, but they are my focuses.
Yeah, I love the thought of the ecology and what's good for me. What's good for me? What's good for my family?
What's good for others,
others,
society, planet.
Yeah,
yeah,
and obviously coming back to your values at all times when you are feeling off and restock. But I think, yeah, and I think also it's something from my personal experience. When life gets busy or life gets hard, the first thing usually that goes is self-care. Because you can't, you're too busy.
Yeah.
And so, whereas if we take stock of what has to occur or what does occur, like when we're having a great day, when we've had a really, really good, 24 hours, and you look back and go, what were those ingredients? But you don't often do that because you go, well, I just had a great day. You don't learn anything from a success, or don't learn a lot from success. So you sort of go to bed and wake up, and there's no reconciliation of what made a good day good. And I think that's really important. And often, obviously, is you've done something for yourself. You've you've moved, you've eaten well, you've hydrated, and all the things. But as soon as then, it's interesting as well, I find, because when you do that, you're in a really good place, really like growth mindset. You can achieve a lot, right, from a really good, strong foundation once you've looked after yourself. By virtue of doing that, though, you then take on more and more, and then you're like, and then so there is a lag. You can just say, all right, I could take over the world. And certainly for me, it's when if I do that, I'll feel much more energized, let's say, to work late and not go to, once the household's asleep, pull the laptop up and do 3 or 4 hours more work. And you feel really energized, and it's still in line with my values. It's not like I'm flogging myself, but it's like it's so purposeful in the work. Then you go to bed late. Then you wake up. Then you've only had 4 or 5 hours sleep, and then you miss that gym session, and then you go to work, and then you probably can manage that for another couple of days, and then it'll catch you right back, saying you're not looking after yourself. And there's this sort of cycle. So it would be. Whereas I think the more mature way to do it is to say, I feel great because I've had sleep, I've exercised, and I've done work, and it's okay that I feel really good and go to bed. I don't need to take on the world or more responsibility just because I feel good.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think rolling with the energy when it's there is great, but also have the mindfulness around what got me to this.
Or
energy.
The boundaries. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely setting boundaries and going, okay, well, I feel this good because I've done this. I'm not going to flog myself now. I'm just going to continue. Yes, I'm going to go with it while the energy's there, because some nights I'll have late nights, early starts. And then it's okay, I can feel that that's catching up. All right, let's pull it back. Okay, I'm going to start again and reset and have flexibility around that as well. I think it's just awareness is everything.
What's your non-negotiables then?
Moving my body, gratitude every day.
How does that look?
So gratitude first up is I always wake up and smile and say thank you. And when things just pop up, I think it's just part of me from I did the 28 days of gratitude practices, the book, The Magic, done that multiple times. And it just becomes part of you every day so that you don't go, like if you're stuck in, for example, traffic jam, your nervous system isn't going to be like, oh, like that, because you just say, thank you so much that I'm actually here and I'm not in that accident, or, just really reframing and just focusing on gratitude so that you can keep yourself in that state. And moving my body always, like every day, in some way, shape or form. It doesn't always look like a heavy gym session. It could be yoga movement at home. It could be a power walk, do my ice bathing, do saunas, just always making sure that I'm looking
There's an
after me.
intention there.
Mhm.
That's so good. I hope people can understand why, or it's evident why I got you on, and why it's crazy that, and I feel so grateful to be able to work with you.
No, thank you.
I know one last tip for the listeners for you, because you are someone who has developed over many years to lean into the discomfort, and you've just been asked to get on stage in front of 100 people later in the year, and even coming on here, I imagine is leaning into the discomfort, and I just feel like you do that. What's the advice, right? Because we can see it, we can say, all right, I can acknowledge that something is challenge. Look, that's going to be out of my comfort zone, and we're wired to go, that's good, has to be good, lean in. For someone who's probably less embracive of that, how would you, and from someone given that you were less embracive of that, how do you get to a place where you can lean in more?
It was really just a decision. Do it scared. Like there was no, I just decided that I wanted to change, and nothing changes if nothing changes. So it's just a matter of making a decision. And I say ready is just a decision. So
do you think you need to be, I think it's the difficult position for most, I would feel, is that, that it's the equation of, well, there is discomfort here to lean in. I'm in some sort of discomfort situation now, which is why I'm contemplating going outside my comfort zone and trying to work out which one's worse with the discomfort level. And I think a lot of people will be sitting in this gray area where it's not horrible to like lock down, I'm changing, but not great. So how do you, when you say it, so you say flippantly, I think, just do it. Like you've got to want it. You've got to want to do it.
Yeah.
But how do you convince yourself, if you're just sitting there in the melancholy and to go, well, I'm all ready. I know it's almost like better the devil you know. Like I'm in this gray area of discomfort, but I know it. Whereas I don't know what that looks like. I don't know the potential of how good that could be. All I can see is the challenge.
Yeah, it's easy to get comfortable in your comfort zone, uncomfortable in your comfort zone. I think it's
because you're choosing growth over comfort. And yes, I agree with you that it needs to come from a place of authenticity. You can't fabricate it. You can't just pretend that that's what you want. But how do you get the courage, I guess, right? My auntie, who is an avid listener, probably the number one fan of this show, she got one of my boys a book which was all about courage. I think the word courage was, or brave. And it was basically saying, it was if you've got a chance, right? Which I guess is this T intersection of getting outside your comfort zone and doing something about it. And it's like, you don't need to take that chance. You don't need to be brave all the time.
No.
We're not brave all the time. You don't have to be courageous all the time, but you need to be brave and courageous at the right time to be able to lean into that. But if you're sitting on the fence and you're not sure, I guess it's how can you, like, do you just have to wait until it's so bad? Or how do you try to get ahead of that and lean in?
Yeah, I think it's different for everyone, but I like to look at like what's going to make me proud of myself.
Yeah,
like that,
I love that.
And if I stay here, if in a year's time, like what difference will that make? But if I go here, then like, wow, what opportunities might have I opened for myself? But I'm never going to know that if I stay here. So I think you can't want it for somebody more than they want it for themselves. But I think it's just, you've just got to decide. And yes, it's uncomfortable, and just no one's coming to change anything for you. So are you going to be okay with being in this position in a year or whatever it is for you? Are you going to be okay with that? And to me, the answer would always be no.
Matthew McConaughey had, I don't know whether it was his Oscar speech or just a random internet speech, but he was saying that his hero was him in 5 years' time or him in 10 years' time. And so he'd never meet that person because it would always shift up. But he would always think, what do I do today to impress or to be like that person who I want to be?
Yeah.
Which I thought was great.
Yeah, it is great. Future pacing is amazing because that's where you get into, that's what you're moving towards. Always looking ahead and going, okay, where do I want to be? Where do I see myself? Who am I showing up as in a year's time, in 5 years' time? And then go, is this moving me towards that goal or away from that?
And allow yourself take away the barriers or the glass ceilings as who that person could be, and not limit yourself to go, well, I'm only worthy of, 1% better than I am today in 5 years' time. That's the sort of person I am. But this is, be creative, right? Be like, you could be a Superman in 5 years' time. And why not work towards that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, you've got every chance and opportunity, and that comes back to gratefulness, to have that opportunity to be the very best human you could possibly be in all the different areas you want.
Yeah.
It's a blank canvas of who that person is.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the time we don't. There's people that don't actually think that big because they're limited by their old programming and patterns and past results as well. And
100%.
Past results don't equal future results, but it's remembering that because that brings up fear for moving forward.
And I think also a lot of people are in that, they call it the rat race, or that sort of, I'm just going to need to do this, this, and this, and get home and get kids to bed, and then I'll watch the TV, then I'm going to bed, and then I'll wake up the next day and do the same thing. There's no time to take stock and go, who do I want to be in 5 years? And there's a little bit of self-reflection, or a lot of self-reflection in that sense of who I could be compared to who I am now. And that's, that's sometimes a tough pill to swallow, to say that I'm not who I want to be right now. But
taking self-responsibility.
100%. And to be able to say, but then there's a huge amount of agency to say, well, I accept I want to be that person. And so then maybe the answers to our questions of how do we lean into the discomfort is tied up into that. Fast 5 questions. And I've been told by codes to make these fast answers.
Yes.
What does success mean to you?
Success to me means living in alignment with your values. It means being proud of who you are and how you show up in the world.
Happiness?
Happiness to me is connection. It's finding the joy in the little things, in the mundane things, and just doing the things that light your soul up.
I briefly talked about it, but what does your morning routine normally look like?
Yeah, gratitude, smile and say thank you. Up between 4:30 and 5:30, and depending on whether I'm doing a gym session, a power walk and an ice bath, or yoga at home, and then a nutritious breakfast.
What does that look like?
I have eggs, tomato, baby spinach leaves, cucumber, hemp seeds, and kimchi. Almost every day.
We got a piece of toast in there or not?
No.
So good. What would be a piece of advice you'd give to your 20-year-old self that you would want to also put on a billboard for the world to see?
Biggest thing would be, what anyone else thinks of you is none of your business. Stay true to you.
And then finally, Leigh, a guest you think we should have on the show, knowing that we have had Ali on?
Yeah. Local or non-local? I didn't ask Cody that.
Doesn't matter.
Alex Stewart from Low-Tox Life. She really did change the trajectory of my path, my life.
All right. That's great. Leigh Walker, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We probably should get back to work.
Yes, let's do it.
That was another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. Next time you're ready to turn your life around and take that next big step, turn to the person next to you and tell them all about the show. It really means a lot. A huge thanks to Leigh for coming on the show. If something in this episode resonated with you, let us know in the comments. And as always, don't forget to like, follow, and share it as much as you can. It's the only way we grow. Until next time, peace.